see. I think we should be starting here soon. We are live. How's everybody doing? Let's see. Let's test. I want to make sure we're testing. Let's see. Hold on, guys. We're just testing if the sound is good. Test.
Ooh.
Let's see. Hold on, guys. We're just testing. Oh, the sound is working. Cool. How is everybody doing? Hey, we're so excited that you guys joined us again for part 3, and we're excited. We are live from our bedroom studio. I'm just kidding.
The most holy of holies. Invite you in.
Well,
that's a little awkward.
Hey, we're excited to have you guys on, and we'll just wait a minute or two for more to join us. We apologize. I know last time we jumped on here, guys.
Yes.
Desi had strep throat and the kids, so we had to miss the Monday.
Not fun.
And now here we are doing part 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
And we thank you guys. We're getting some really great feedback. You know, I understand that right now we are in a crucial time where there's a major transitioning happening. And as I've been talking to friends and other leaders, one of the things we're finding is a common theme, that there are some really major transition and moves that are happening where people are being repositioned. And we really believe it's repositioning for the harvest. As a believer of Christ, just the harvest has been prophesied. People, I was talking to a good friend, he said he feels like the soldiers in the army are being repositioned for the next incoming wave. And so some good stuff. But we're excited. And if you are joining us, let us know that you're here. And I see some folks who have joined us, and hopefully will be a blessing. Well, as you guys know, this is part 3 of navigating and recognizing and navigating a season of transition. We're going to do this 4 parts. So we're going to do it next Thursday. Will be our last part of this series of just journey. It's amazing that we're able to get on here and share and just kind of process with you, because it's even a journey for us.
And I was just going to say too, like, you know, I don't know if it's a good idea or not to speak this to you guys and share it when we're still in the middle of transition, but hey, we're not scared of that. We're still in the middle of it. And so hopefully our heart is that us being in the middle of it and being vulnerable with our experience and journey, that it helps you guys understand that, hey, we don't got it all figured out and we're not perfect. We're discovering just like you guys. But hopefully some things and some tips that we've learned along the way will be a blessing to you. That's our hope and our desire.
It's so cool there's a delay on here.
Oh, I figured that. Yeah.
That is funny.
It's okay.
Well, anyhow, let's jump into this. Now that you have recognized a transition, remember the last 2 have been more navigating and just kind of seeing if you're in a transition season. When you recognize that you are in a transition season and you have felt the push, you have insight where you're now going, the actual push you've recognized, but now you're feeling the pull. We want to give you some practical things on how to step into the next season.
This is exciting for me, because this one and next week's as well, there's going to be some specific practical stuff that we want to give you. So it's going to be good.
And so as you guys know that we talked about every transition, there's a push and a pull. And I want to kind of just give an overview of that real quick, just for those who may be joining us for the first time. Every transition, there's a push and a pull. The push is the grace and the assignment changing on your current season. That which you had grace for, that where you're able to stay in a certain season, the grace is lifted off, it's changed. And so what used to come easier is now harder. There's a push, there's a pushing out, an ending of one season. And then the pull is the revealing or the beginning of the next season or the next assignment, per se. So one thing you have to understand is that every transition involves change. So one thing I wanted to just kind of point out, every transition involves change, but not every change in life leads to a transition.
That's good. Yeah.
And this is really important, because sometimes people have changes going on in their life and they think it's a transition, but it's not a transition, it's just a change. Change and transition are two different things, but when you're in a transition, change happens.
Right.
But sometimes when things are changing in your life, doesn't mean it's a transition. I'm going to explain more. This will help maybe clear up the current seas that maybe some of you guys are in. Change, I like to say, is an external thing. So change involves a outside situation or event, such as a new job, a new career, a new location moving. That's a change. But transition is more of an internal transformation and change. And so I like to put it this way: transition is an internal process that helps us to come to terms with a major change. Until there has been a full internal transition, there will not be an external change to be released to us. And so sometimes what happens is, one of the things I've really realized in this season, and we've been through 4 major transitions in our life, and the thing that I've noticed is that many times when a transition is happening, it's actually God trying to do something inside of me.
Yeah.
There's a major shift that has to happen inside of me. There's an identity upgrade. There's a growth. It's like, the best way I can describe it, a transition looks like the process of a, I lost my train of thought, butterfly and a,
Sorry.
Wow, thanks. Turns into a butterfly. I can't think. Why did I just? What turns into a butterfly?
Caterpillar.
Yeah, caterpillar. There you go. So
Sorry.
It's the best thing I can describe it is a transition looks like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, and that's a transition. So it's almost like you're becoming a new person. There's a new identity. There's something new that's happening in this transition that's more than just an external change. And I like to say it this way. You see it with the Israelites coming out of Egypt. Maybe you've heard the saying, you can take the Israelites out of Egypt, but you can't take the Egypt out of the Israelites, so they have to go. And when we say statements like that, what we're saying is that there is an external change, but there hasn't been an internal transformation or transition. And so sometimes what happens is that for a transition to happen on the outside, there has to be a transition first on the inside.
And I think that's why we highlighted in part 2, if you haven't listened to it, you can go back. But in part 2, we really highlighted some of the things that the preparation leading up to that. And it all has to do with preparation and growth from within. We talked about character development and mindset development. And both of those things are exactly what Matt's talking about.
And so there are 3 phases to every life transition you'll go through. Number 1 is what we've been talking, it's the end of a previous season. So if you're in a transition, there's going to be an end of a season, whether that's a job, a new location, or whatever you may be doing. Before a transition happens, the push is there's an end. That's phase 1. There's an end of a previous old season. Then the second phase is what we call the process or the neutral zone. It's where the whole cocoon, I'm saying that right, cocoon. I'm tongue-tied right now. It's your beauty. You gotta be tongue-tied. It's the cocoon process before the ultimate transformation of a butterfly. And then the last phase is what we call the new begins or the new venture, the new assignment. Many times in the transition season, in the midst of the process phase, there may be several things pulling on you. That's why it's very important to lean into the Lord for direction during this time. And one of the things that we realized when the end of the previous season ended, and we're still in that process. We're still in the middle phase. We're not in the end of the new beginnings yet.
Yeah.
We're in the part 2 right now as we're talking to you guys. And so in the neutral, the process phase, what happens is you start getting pulls from a bunch of different directions. And for some of you, it may be opportunities. And so where in the previous season, there wasn't no opportunities, as soon as you step into the process, you get opportunities. And one of the things that's been happening with us is that people have come to us, giving us opportunities. Hey, would you want to come here? Do you want to go here? Do you want to move here? Job opportunity to do stuff that was not even on our grid or wasn't even before us before that season. And so what happens, we have a lot of options right now. But because of the words we received and because we know what the next step looks like, we understand these options, those are great, but we have recognized we want to stay focused on what God is speaking, what he's doing. And so what happens many times in this neutral process, there'll be many options thrown your way, and these options could actually be distractions. And it's such a crucial time that you lean into the Lord and actually just put your ear on his heart and begin to hear what he's saying in this season, so you don't make a wrong step or a wrong move. Because what happens in the pool season, or the process, or the neutral zone, which we like to call it, is things begin to get tighter. And so sometimes when you're in transition, in that next phase, the second phase, it feels like everything around you getting tighter. You almost feel like, okay, what's going on? This is becoming real hard. Things begin to get tight. Your options begin to narrow down to bring focus in a right direction. But once you pass through the hallway of transition, we like to call it, things begin to open up wider again.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of mentioned that last time, was that sometimes people, say like the process in the middle, it feels like a hallway, and it's like you go from one door, you walk through the hallway of transition, and it's really, you have to understand, when you're in that place, it's really the grace of God and that's on the process to get you through the narrow zone, to get you to the next door that opens up again. And because, like he said, there's so many options a lot of times in that place. If we didn't have that squeezing or that narrowing down, we wouldn't know which one to pick. And so God, a lot of times, will help us in the process and narrows it down for us, and to keep us on that straight and narrow to get us to the next place.
And this is, I think, the most crucial part of the transition phase, is the process, or the neutral zone.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. When you don't understand why things are getting tighter, I've seen many people in a transition and they're in the neutral phase where things around them are getting tighter.
Yeah.
There's a squeeze. It's actually a squeeze. It's even like what happens with the caterpillar. As you study this whole thing, there's a squeeze. They're in this little tiny place where all this transformation happens, and it just feels like, oh, I'm in this tight place. What's going on? What happens when you don't understand why things are getting tighter in this neutral phase? It can cause you to make either, number one, a desperate move to make something happen on your own. I've seen many people do that. Or two, it causes you to go back to what is comfortable, i.e. the Israelites in the wilderness. When the Israelites were in this phase 2 of the transition to the promised land, what happened, things begin to get tighter and they wanted to go back to Egypt. And so sometimes when you don't understand the tightness is for your expansion and growth, then when things get tighter, what you try to do is you either try to make things happen so you can get out of the tight place, or you actually, what happens is the opposite. You want to go back to what is comfortable. And you don't want to do that when you're in a transition. It's in the neutral phase, which we're about right now, is what I call also the unknown place. It is an in-between season. And if you've ever been in a transition, the hardest place is the in-between season. The old season, hey, that was great. The new season, you don't fully have a grasp in, but it's the in-between season that is really, really hard. But this is also the place where we learn how to let go of the old so that we can be ready for the new. In this phase, there's a longing. This is one of the hardest things that happens, is that when you're in this phase, because it's uncomfortable, there's a longing for what's comfortable. There's a longing for the previous season and the previous things that made you comfortable. And so sometimes what will happen is that God has to cut those things off so that we won't go back to Him. And so we won't go back to the things that are comfortable, because it'll actually take us from the process that we need to be in. But one of the greatest things I love about this phase is that we see this with the Israelites, and this is really where we compare the whole transition season. You really get some good lessons from the Word of God. It's that in phase 2 is where you see the biggest miracles of God. And when they were in the wilderness, they saw the miracles in the hand of God. They saw the Dasani water come from a rock. They saw the manna burgers. They saw their clothes not wearing out. And what happens is when things get tighter and you feel like your back's against the wall, whether it's financially or emotionally, or things are happening, this is when, if you keep your heart right and you don't try to make things happen, and you just keep focused on the Lord, that you see the hand of God and miracles. I gotta tell you what, we have seen miracles.
Yeah.
It's just been amazing just to see the financial miracles open up when we're like, okay, I don't know how we're going to pay bills, or something happens, and you're like, finances are supposed to come, and now it's not working out, and you're like, oh man, what are we going to do? And then you see the hand of God in this phase, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So let's give you guys some practicals.
We like practicals. So we're going to give you guys 4 points tonight talking about this. And the first one, if you're taking notes, just kidding. Well, you can if you want. But so the first one is take courage. Okay, here we go. Overcoming fear is probably one of the top things that you will face when walking through a season of transition. And first things first, we have to understand 2 Timothy 1:7. You guys all know it, I'm sure. For God has not given us a spirit of what? Fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. And so when you're going after the things of God and the destiny God has for you, and you step into that and you say yes, you don't want to expect fear to come, but you have to anticipate that, so you're not blindsided, that fear's going to try to rear its head at some point. And so you have to be prepared to deal with it and to overcome it. And, and it's really an amazing thing that when you're in this place, because, you know, how do I say it? It's so God that because you've said yes and your options are narrowed down, your only option is Him. Yeah. Your only option is to trust Him. And it's like you will never experience that faith muscle grow until you're in that place. And it's really awesome. It really is. Even though it's hard sometimes, it's amazing. Sorry, I was just reading something. A few months back, when we're in the middle of this season, we heard our good friend Vanny Liebscher speak at a conference a while back, and it was really profound in the sense that it was right in the place where we really needed to hear this. And so if you're in that place, I want to just say the same thing to you. He was talking about courage, and he was saying and it's so good. It sounds simple, but it's so good. Courage is not the absence of fear, but instead, courage looks like this. And I literally did this. Courage is looking fear right in the face and saying, fear, I see you. I recognize you're there. I see you, but guess what? I'm going to do it anyway.
Come on.
You're going to look fear dead in the eye and say, I see you. Yeah, I got my eye on you, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to move forward anyway. And guess what? That thing breaks. You know, it reminds me of like when I was a little kid and I wanted so bad to jump off the diving board for the first time, you know, and you're like so scared, you're so nervous, you have all this anticipation and you have this fear, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And so what happens? The moment you say, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and you go and jump off it, wow, you feel this freedom like never before, and you're like, why did I wait this long? It feels so awesome, you know. And it wasn't until you took that action, or when I took that action, where that fear no longer gripped me. I'd go off it 100 times, you know. And a lot of times breaking fear requires an action on our end. And so, you know, it's one thing to recognize fear, or when fear is trying to bring lies or bring accusations or bring speculation, you know, whatever form it comes in, we can recognize it, and that's the first step. But then actually doing something about it to break the power of it off of our life. And so that's what we're talking about. And courage is probably the first step. And so courage may not look like, oh, I got this big S on my chest and I'm going to go after this thing and I'm going to, follow my destiny. You know, there might be moments of that, and that's awesome. But oftentimes it's, you know what, I feel so fearful right now. I don't know if I can do this, but you say yes anyway. And suddenly the grace of God comes on your life like you cannot even imagine.
Come on.
When you say yes. And ultimately that is the first step, is your yes to Him. So, yeah.
That's so good. That is so good. I think when we fail to have courage, we will fail to step into transition. Courage is probably one of the most underrated aspects of transition, and it's actually really what separates those who will step into the promised land and those who will end up dying in the wilderness.
Yeah, and I just want to point one more thing about courage. It starts with courage to step out and to step into it and to say yes for the first time, the first part of the transition. But it takes courage every step of the way, every single step, because the one thing that you don't want to do, and we're going to get a little bit more into this probably next time, is you don't want to have false expectations and what things are going to look like. And that could go back to the Israelites very easily. You know, the promised land, of course we want to go to the promised land, you know, milk and honey, oh my gosh, all these good things. But as soon as they step into the promise, now they had to get their working boots on, you know, and I don't know if they were expecting that. So I think that we need to have courage every step of the way to partner with God and seeing it fulfilled into fruition.
And I just want, you know, I want to just reiterate to those, because I just feel this by the Holy Spirit. It's just so strong. You know, one of the things that happens, we talked about last time, is that God, actually was in our first teaching about how you have to look for the signs. One of the unique signs that's happening right now, I have a good friend who was in Russia, and he was about to prophesy to Russia about the coming move of God that's going to take place. And right when he points his finger to do that, a butterfly shows up, lands on his finger, and they actually found out the type of butterfly that it was actually a butterfly from South America.
Wow.
And they're like in the middle of Russia where it's snow, and it's just crazy. And then I've been hearing this testimony from many different leaders about just random butterflies showing up, and I really do believe that that's a sign. God will give us signs of transition. We've had that many times happen.
Yeah.
And I just believe that, you know, butterflies or random things that are happening are really a sign to the body of Christ of the major transition. And hey, we just celebrated just a few days ago on October 31st, the 500th year of Reformation. And talk about a major transition.
Absolutely.
And so that is really, really exciting. But I want to speak to those just real quick who are in phase 2. And I just want to encourage you, don't give up if things feel tight. Don't give up if everything that you know is not working out. Things are getting tighter. Maybe you don't know how you're going to just do practical things like pay the bills. You stepped out. Maybe some of the things are happening. You don't know.
Yeah.
I got to tell you what, we're there. We've been there. I mean, on paper, it does not make sense. The transition we're making on paper doesn't make sense. Leave your job security. Leave your finances, leave everything where you have a young family, 4 kids, and you're stepping into a place where there's no position or finances coming in, but the Lord says, trust me, and we're going to do it this way. And it's scary when you have to provide for a family and you have to provide for kids, and it's like, but we've seen the hand of God in the miraculous. And really phase 2 isn't even so much about preparing for the fullness of the transition. Phase 2 is about the unveiling of who God really created you to be. It's in this phase where you get developed and transformed, that you understand the realness and even the understanding the fullness of your full identity and who you are, your design. And so, it's so good. So, number 2, point 2, so Des just shared, take courage, part 1. Number 2 is finish strong in your previous season. This is such a huge point. I can't even emphasize it enough. Finish strong in the prior season. What do we mean by that? Don't check out. Stay focused. Understand change is difficult for a lot of people. And what happens, even though change is difficult, in the midst of change, something has to be left behind and something in the future has to be grabbed upon. And sometimes because change is hard and it's comfortable for many people, that the changes in your life could cause those around you, relationships, people who are connected to you, it could cause them to have a little fear. And so you have to make sure that you keep your heart right, you stay focused, you don't check out, but also you have to keep your heart clean from all offense. And this is huge, because many times, as we talked about in our last teaching, the whole Hannah principle. Wow, there we go. And how God will raise up Paniahs to provoke you in a season, to get you focused on Him and to get some resources and thoughts and revelations to you that you didn't currently have. And so you have to make sure that you keep your heart pure, and you finish strong in the prior season, because how you finish in the prior season will always begin, is how you're going to begin in the next season. And I've seen so many people transition wrongly, where they didn't finish strong in the last season, so the beginning into the transition didn't go smooth either. And you want to have a smooth beginning into the next thing God is doing. And you don't want to burn bridges.
Yeah.
You don't want to burn bridges. I don't believe in burning bridges, unless God speaks to you to burn bridges. But
I mean, of course, there's those rare exceptions when it's probably healthy to do so. But in most cases, it's better that you don't. And I remember when we first started in ministry, mentor, spiritual father of ours, Sean Smith, told us, it's much easier to, what did he say? Now I'm gonna butcher it. Sorry, Sean.
It's easier to give birth to a baby than to raise the dead.
Oh, well, that's a different one. I was thinking about the bridge one. It's much easier to something. Never mind. That was. Sorry, Sean.
We're having fun. This is live. Facebook Live.
You guys probably know it. That's okay.
We're having fun. So anyhow, finish strong in the prior season. I love Galatians 6:9. And let's not grow weary for doing good. For in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And that's the thing. Do not give up. And also we have to keep doing good. Don't be getting weary. Doing good, meaning this. Doing the good that you were doing in the previous season. Keep it up until you finally are released. Don't check out. Don't give up. Don't burn bridges. I've seen too many people do this. And it makes it harder for the next transition until you fully step into what God has for you, whatever that may be. So make sure you don't give up. Finish strong in the prior season.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. First point: take courage. Second point: finish strong in the prior season. Third point: seek counsel. Some of you guys, I'm sure, already do this, but this I feel like is super important. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Where there is no counsel, plans fail, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established." They are established. We personally have about 4 couples that we look to, trusted couples that we look to, that we've had longevity with, we have history with. They know us, they know what we've been through, they know our ups and downs, our ins, our outs, everything. And so when we say seek counsel, we say that with this prefacing it, that I hope that those would be people that you have established relationships with already, that you have allowed to speak into your life to some levels. Some people that are a little ahead of you, more mature than you, that have walked through some of the things that you're going to be walking through. That's helpful. And ultimately that you've established that trust with them. And so, we did that, very early on. And when we knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we were in a season of transition, we sought out 5 couples that we really looked to. And I was going to say something that was on there. And so, of course, this when we're saying seek counsel, it's never replacing the voice of God or God speaking to us about what He's calling us to do. But more often than not, because of course the people that you're seeking counsel from hear God too. More often than not, they're going to bring confirmation and encouragement. And most of the time too, and I think this is probably the most helpful part, is they oftentimes have wisdom in areas that we might not see, or some things that we maybe just not have thought of or overlooked. And so I feel like it's imperative it's such an imperative part to this season, and I believe it's really helped us avoid some hurts and heartaches that we may have gone through had we not taken some of their counsel and their wisdom and their advice, because there are some specific things that some of them shared and way to handle situations that we needed to approach certain things the right way. There is a way to do things and a way not to do things in a season of transition that will be helpful to you, or it will limit you, or will bring some, it will make it harder. So I think that that's very important to have that in your life.
Now, I do want to make a point that there's a difference between counsel and advice. Counsel comes from those who are on the other side and been through some stuff. Advice comes from friends.
That's good.
And so what happens many times is that we seek out friends. Friends always want the best for you, so they'll give you advice, or we seek out people who don't know us, so all they can give you an advice. And let me give you the difference. Advice is the recommendation regarding a decision or course, where counsel is guidance given by a professional. And so you want counsel. A professional is somebody who's been through some things, who's on the other side, who's gone through transition, who actually knows you. You want to seek those ones out that give you counsel. That's what the Bible says, finding counsel, not advice. Advice is recommendation. So like if when I'm at a church service and someone comes up to me and they ask me for advice, I give them advice according to the circumstance or the things that I've gone through, but I can't give them counsel because I don't know them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about. You want those who know you, who've been around, who've been through some things that can give you counsel, not just advice. Advice is good, but for this you need counsel. And there's a big difference, because it's in counsel that you get wisdom. And in advice you get courage, and in counsel you get wisdom.
So good. You need both. You really do. And I kind of made a side note on our last teaching that you don't want to do anything apart from being in agreement with your spouse if you're married. And that's one thing I think that for us seeking counsel is in this process is really keeping us on the same page through the whole thing is vital. And they've given us some great wisdom in how to do that and how to navigate it together, and that's super important.
And counsel, I just say this way. I wrote it down here. I want to give this to you. This is really good. It's actually another teaching that I do in our school. It goes like this. Counsel is from someone that knows you. And so someone can give you counsel because they know you, but a person can give you advice because they know the situation. So counsel, we want wisdom from those who know us. We don't want just advice and information about the situation. Even though there's times you want advice about the situation, but you want counsel and wisdom from those who know you. So, yes, good stuff. So
advice isn't wrong.
No.
You guys understand, hopefully, what we're saying is advice is not wrong. It's not bad to throw things off your friends or your peers. That's great. That's fine. And a lot of times there'll be encouragement in that, and that's great. But when you're making major decisions, I think that you definitely it's helpful to have counsel.
I think you just said this, but one of the things that we've done really good is anytime we've ever had a major decision, we've discussed it we discussed it within our relationship. But then we also sought out some fathers and mentors that really gave us wisdom and spoke into the situation and know us. And I think that's, that's what's amazing about it. You get those people who know you that you actually can listen to and get counsel and wisdom. And I'm just thinking about over the years all the decisions we've had to make if it wasn't for the fathers. And I just think those you know who you are, those fathers out there that have spoken into our life. I don't want to say names. I'm not a name dropper or anything like that, but I do really appreciate everything that is. Yeah. So anyhow, so last point. So let's go over these again. Take courage, finish strong in the prior season, seek counsel, and last, number 4, make investments to where you're going. This is so huge. Whether it is, and what we're trying to say is that one of the ways that we show heaven that we're agreeing where God has taken us is by taking steps that show we're in agreement. And that's what we're talking about, is make investments where you're going. Whether this is a relational investments, whether it's money, training, schooling, planning, tighten up time management, getting a new bank account, upgrading software, computer, paying off debt, making a budget to reflect financial forecasts for the new season, just many different things you could do. And so it's like, if you have been, let's give an example. Maybe you've been a teacher your whole life, and all of a sudden the Lord's beginning to speak to you, and there's a major transition, and you're going to start your own business. I'll give you a practical one for me. I've been co-pastoring for the last 8 years, and in this transition, I get words that God is going to raise you up to raise up prophetic voices in the marketplace. Well, I understand part of this next transition this season is to go into marketplace, both of us, for business. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've been doing, I've been investing in business books. I've been reading business principles and books and developing business language and understanding business culture. And what I'm doing, I'm coming in full alignment, in agreement with what God is directing us. And I may not be there yet, but I'm showing the Lord right now that, hey, I believe in what you're saying and where we're going. And so I'm going to do what I need to do in this season to prepare for that. Yeah. And so you want to make investments to where you're going. This is for those, okay, you understand you're in the process and you're understanding the transition. Well, make investments to go there. Maybe it's a move. Maybe you're not ready to move yet. Go visit the city. Find out about the city. Look up on Google about the city. I mean, there's different things that we can do to make investments.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, if there's a move, you practical stuff. You got to find a new school for your kids. You have to. I mean, I'm so silly about this kind of stuff. Like, some of the most important things about moving to me are like, I want to know where my places are, like where I'm going to go in my daily life, like where's the grocery store I'm going to go to, you know, where's the bank at? Like, I looked up all this, you know, where, you know, just so you know ahead of time before you're actually there. You know, it sounds silly, but it's so true. You're creating this new life if you're moving geographically, which we have never done. We both are born and raised in Stockton, so it's kind of a big deal for us. For some of you, maybe you've moved a lot and it's like, oh yeah, cool. But for us, it's a pretty big deal because we've never moved from here. So
once again, the points are: take courage, finish strong in the prior season, seek counsel, and make investments to where you are going. Now, I'm seeing people on live. What's up, David Thompson, Tamara, Sharon? What's up, guys? Joyce, how you guys doing? Hesaba, hey, my new sister-in-law, what's up? Hey, guys, if you guys have any questions about anything we've talked about, I want to jump on here and see.
I wanted to ask everyone that has watched 1, 2, and 3, and if you haven't, you can go back and watch, or even if this is the first time you're watching this, Part 4, I want to just reiterate, we're doing next Thursday at 6, same time. And I want to ask you guys, if you feel and you know and you've recognized you are in the season of transition, if you would come and if you would post up some questions on our Facebook Live next week. We want to get some interaction going, and hopefully we can even answer some questions. Maybe you need a little bit of time to think of some questions. We want to be helpful to you in that. So if you can think of anything, post it up next week. Invite your friends. If you can think of someone, you know, they're in transition, this would be helpful for them. You know, invite them to watch next Thursday at 6, and they can go back on Matt's Facebook and see the replay.
And then share these for us too. Also, you know, we're not going fully in depth. There's still some more that we're not going to be able to get. I mean, trying to do all this transition in 4-part series, there's stuff that's going to be left out. And so in the future here, we may be doing some kind of e-course on this if those who want to go deeper in processing life transition. It's a thought we've talked about, not sure. We've just gotten a lot of feedback from you guys, whether it's been on here or Facebook messages or just out and about, and you guys are talking about it. We've talked to many. We've been out and about going, hey, I love your guys' Facebook Lives. It's so helped me. And
if you don't want to post up the questions you have on the live feed, if you want to just message us, private message us, we want to make sure we help in that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if this has blessed you, please share it. And then also, let's just check right now. Is anybody on here? If you guys have any questions about anything we shared, whether in this part 3 or part 2 or part 1, we'd love to hear some feedback from you guys and see how we can answer or address any questions right now before we get off this conversation. Facebook Live.
Cannonball, Tamara, I love that. Hello, yes, what up? Okay, I'm going the wrong way. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see, any questions?
If not, that's fine, but
thank you, Judith. This has been amazing. April, thank you. April, how you doing?
Hey.
That's awesome. Anybody else have any questions about anything on the topic of transition or just navigating, recognizing transition? It's really hard. One of the things I've realized is that there's not many resources out there, books on transition, and it's been really, really interesting in just this process. And come on, Hesaba, on the way back from LA.
Aww.
Come on, my new sister-in-law and my brother Zach just got married, and they're coming back from their honeymoon, and they're watching this on the way back. What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
And so, yeah, anybody else? Any questions at all? Anything? We'll just wait a second to see. This has been fun. I'm enjoying this. Are you enjoying this?
Yay.
So
yeah, so we have some more practical stuff next time.
I've always wondered when they do this on TV, at the cups, and what's in their cups.
I'm assuming it's water or coffee. I don't know.
It's water here.
I think we had to have our revival in the cup specially for this broadcast.
This is fun. And yeah, so I don't know if there are any questions.
Okay. We'll wrap it up.
Are you saying that transition is a process and change is more sudden? Yes.
Good point.
You got it. You get brownie points, Judith. That is what I am saying, is that many times transition is a process, and it has to do with the transforming of you internally, where a change happens externally. And so what happens is, sometimes I think what happens is we focus on the external in transition, and we miss the whole thing that God is wanting to reveal, and that's the transforming of us and our identity.
That's a good question too.
So we got Sharon says a question. Here's a question. Sometimes does God just give you steps, as in not the whole picture, and you're walking in transition?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Matter of fact, most of the time that's the case. For us in this process, most of the time you only get the next step in front of you. You know, it was like I had this picture the other day, and I was telling Matt, it was like I saw like this path, and like there was a red carpet rolled up, and it was right in front of me, and I'm standing on the flat part, and it was like as soon as I took a step, it started to unroll.
Yep.
And every step I would take, it would unroll more and more and more, but it wouldn't unroll until I took that step. And that's kind of what it feels like a lot of times, is that you take the first step and then you get the next piece. You take a next step, you get the next piece. And then oftentimes, hopefully this doesn't that is encouraging, but oftentimes you don't have the full understanding until after the fact, until after you take this step. You know, if you have understanding beforehand, that's awesome and great, but a lot of times it comes after, because it's where it's, like you said, it's the internal change. And so, a lot of times with that comes trust. It comes, building that faith muscle. It comes, stepping out. And so a lot of times you won't have the full picture until you take that step, and then again and again and again.
And you see with the Israelites, I think we keep going back to this because this is one of the first major transitions you see in Scripture, and we always want to make the Word our foundation. This is what you understand with that whole thing of them transitioning, and just even going back to your question. I want to make sure I'm answering it right. the Israelites were supposed to transition to the Promised Land, and it was theologians say I think it was a 7-day trip, but yet it took them 40 years, and the Lord would only give them one step at a time. Why is that? Because the external outside is not the most important to God. It's the internal on the inside. So sometimes we only can take the next step because we're not ready for the next 3 or 4. And it's in that one step that we either get the courage, we break fear, we lay down a mindset, or something is prepared in us for us to be able to take the next step. And many times we won't take the next step until that thing is shifted in us. Whether it's a dropping of a mindset, whether it's breaking fear, whatever it may be, the Lord speaking to us. And so, yeah, and sometimes this can take years. Mm-hmm. I know for me, I think for both of us, we felt transition probably a year ago, but didn't have language.
Yeah.
But now we're just now seeing this phase and all this stuff beginning. So.
April, you said, would love to hear more about overcoming fear during transition. Could you be a little bit more specific in what you would like to know about breaking fear in transition? Because there's a lot, that's a whole topic in and of itself. But if you have a specific question, that would be
This is so
helpful.
awesome. Linda Gonzales. That's my mom's name. That is so awesome. Linda Gonzales, hold on.
Sorry.
Said, how should I pray about family that is not on board with the new transition? Now, are you talking about a husband, or are you talking about just like a mom or dad? Because that's kind of, those are kind of two different things.
To me, they are, yeah.
Yeah, so can you be more specific, Linda, on what do you mean by family, if you don't mind? Are you talking about a husband, a spouse, or are you talking about outside family, maybe relatives or mother or father?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I mean, if she answers that, that's great. But I know, how do I say this? We've had different scenarios in different times of our life where the people close to us, family members, were not supportive of certain decisions we were making that we really felt like they were God. And it was one of those things, and one particularly I can think of, that they didn't understand why it didn't make sense, but we knew God was speaking to us, and so we just, explained our heart the best we could, to help them understand. We didn't cut them off. We didn't isolate ourselves. That's a huge one, because it's easy to do that when people don't understand or they don't agree with your decision. It's easier a lot of times, well, I'm just going to separate myself from them, and so I don't have to deal with that right now because I'm already under a lot of pressure. That's like the worst thing you can do. So I just want to encourage you not to do that. Okay. More close family. Yeah. So I remember one thing we were getting into, and I don't want to give too many details, but anyway, we didn't fully have the support of some of our close family members. But you know what? Part of that process was like we were talking about, the internal change. Yep. That did something on the inside of us. It develops and grows you in different areas. And I feel like, in this most current transition we're in right now, God spoke to our parents, and they're in full support and agreement, and we didn't always have that. And so, but I feel like those prior seasons really paved the way for this season. Like, they saw our heart, they saw us walk things out and really show them that God's speaking and we're going to follow him, and it really built a trust in them. Like, we trust God because they hear God and they're going to do what God says. And it built a trust that, and a confidence that we're going to do the right thing, even if it doesn't make sense. And so, sometimes, and it's not, well, we're going to prove them. No, that's not the heart behind it. It's, sometimes they just need to see the fruit before they get on board. And that's not always wrong, especially parents. Their heart, most of our parents, and if you're a parent, you understand, we want the best for our kids. And so that's the heart behind it is, oh my gosh, this freaks me out because I don't know what's going to happen with my kids, But if you walk it out and you follow what God's leading you to do, and it bears fruit, they're going to see it, and it's going to hopefully change their mind.
We're going to go and wrap this up. Our kids are trying to come in. And so,
speaking of being a parent.
Yeah, so we want to go hang with our family right now, hang with our kids. Hey, just to let you guys know, This Sunday is our daughter Hayden. She's so beautiful. And our son Gavin and Peyton. This is our family. Hey, just so you guys know, this Sunday I'll be speaking at our home church, Innovation Church. If you're in the area, come join us, 9 a.m. and 11. And then also next Tuesday I'll be in UC Davis at Chi Alpha at the college campus ministering. And so, right in front of the camera. It's all good, baby. But hey, we love you guys. If this has been a blessing, I hope you will share this. And hope it blesses you. And we'll be back next Thursday, 6 p.m. Join us. Love you guys.
Bye, guys. Say peace out.